Okay. All right. Welcome, Adam, with Vitality Health Matrix. Why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your business?
Vital Health Matrix. Well, myself, I've been a personal trainer for over 15 years, moving in on 20 years. In the last year, I've been working purely as a coach. So my business I created going back a number of years ago, and honestly, I had no idea how to do business at all. So I've really been growing my business over the last year as a coach. So what I'm doing now is working as a mind-body transformational coach, specializing in weight loss. So right now, I specialize in helping ambitious female professionals establish healthy lifestyle habits while effective releasing 10 to 20 pounds in as little as 12 weeks. And that's without fad diets, without sham supplements, or upending your life using what I have called the Vitality Matrix method. So the company is Vital Health Matrix. The program that's proven is the Vitality Matrix method. So yeah, that's what I started developing over a year ago. And yeah, it's been awesome. I love seeing people get amazing results.
Yeah, I bet. So what was it that you saw out there that was needed in the marketplace that informed your decision to start this business?
Well, see, I was actually the head trainer at the gym I was at. I'll start there. And that was since around 2004. And then COVID came along, and wave by wave, I saw my clientele just dwindling down until by the end, I probably had who knows, 20 to 25% of my client base that were, willing to come into a gym at that time, right? So I had a decision to make. Do I want to go back and try to build something that had been established for so long in a place where I felt I wasn't able to utilize my skill set? I was limited in the tools that I could use. Or is it time to finally make the jump into becoming a full-on entrepreneur where I knew that I could utilize every skill set and tool that I had been trying to use in the role as a personal trainer, which was a struggle because it wasn't the platform that allowed me to do it in any way. So when after that third wave, I decided to take the leap and become an entrepreneur. It was then when I had to ask myself a couple of questions, right? Like, what exactly do I want to do, right? Who do I want to help? Who do I want to serve? What is it that inspires me? So what I learned from that is that thinking back, I'm like, well, the things that have inspired me over time and the areas where I was able to have the biggest impact on people, the biggest leverage point was through coaching. It was coaching transformational conversations in the last, I don't know how many years, where I'd take clients out of the regular training sessions and I'd sit down and I would coach them. Those are the things where I noticed the most inspiration with me. And I also noticed it had the greatest impact on their results. I noticed that after those conversations, that's when the real changes were happening. So I realized that. So that was one thing. I thought back, where am I? Where is it that I'm inspired? Where is it that I'm having the most impact? And then looking to the world, I'm like, okay, I want to make a difference, not just for, an individual or my family or community. It's like, I want to think big. Like, where can I make an impact in the world? Because the way I look at it is whatever you start to do, everything is like a seed. So it's like, whatever I'm starting with here, I want it to be something that I can continue to grow so I can help more and more people over time. And where I see a need in where we're at currently in civilization is that, well, we're in the middle of a obesity epidemic, right? And it's just been escalating decade after decade. It's like every decade, it looks to be about 7% increase in the number of people, at least in the US, that are overweight or obese, which is huge. And the projection just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm like, okay, there's obviously a problem with that. Now, where is that coming from? Like, what is the problem there? Well, if you get down to the root of it, it's really people's health. And obviously, if there's a trend like that across the entire society, then, it could be coming from just lifestyle alone, or is it coming from, well, it is lifestyle in the end, but what are the influences that social media may be having on people as well. But regardless of exactly where it comes from, when you get down to it, it's the lifestyle that people are living right now. And it's really more of the way I look at it, it's more of a health problem than a fat problem.
Okay, so right now then the question is, which service do you offer that you get the most response to?
The most response to, well, I'm not sure how to answer that question, but can you be more specific with that question?
I mean, you said that you're targeting females that are looking for weight loss, but there's a lifestyle transformation that has to happen, right? I mean, there needs to be transformation that has to happen. So
yeah,
how are you segmenting your services to be able to target your desired audience?
okay, well, what I have is a multi-tiered system. So where I started out was doing high ticket coaching. So I was doing one-on-one with people, and this was to bring them through the system to work on my one-on-one coaching skills at the same time, as well as providing a very high level of support. So that's where it started. And if somebody wants that level of support, that's always going to be there. And some people want that. Some people need that, right? But the end goal, or the next step, at least, not the end goal, but the next step was to take everything that I learned from doing that for about a year and transition that into a group coaching program. Because a group coaching program is something that I'd have to create systems for. And what I wanted to do is figure out how to create a high level of support where there's now a community involved, where there's support that you get from that community, and also where I can give people tools and teach them tactics and strategies, etc., in that setting where you can reach a lot more people, basically, right? So that's the main area I'm focusing on right now, is that group coaching program, because that's the one where people get the most support. I built that to be better than one-on-one in some ways, right? It's like everything that one-on-one has, that my one-on-one program had, but a whole bunch more, because it has to be almost not automated, but it has to provide people with the information, the tools that they need, so that they can get through it without having to see me one-on-one structured every single week, right? I think one of the big benefits is the community. The group coaching is known by anybody who does group coaching to be super powerful. And an example I can give is one of my recent group coaching calls. One of the people in my group was having issues trying to figure out how to exercise well. She has her kids in the house, right? And I have lots of different strategies that I've come up with for this kind of stuff, but there's other women in the group, right? And I turned it over to a few of them to see what they had to say, and they had some great insights in terms of this, which is great. And that's where the power of community and that group coaching can have a massive impact in somebody's life. Real world, help examples, real world advice, right?
Awesome. Okay. Well, I have a question that's come in, but I'm gonna ask you one more thing, and then I'll go to that. And that question is, my last question here is, what is the most rewarding part of your business? Now I'm saying this because I just saw you smiling when you were talking about people getting results, and so, but you come across to me as a guy who likes to innovate your processes and innovate the whatever it is that your programs to address different things that people are having at different times, right? So what is the most rewarding part of it? Is it the planning and strategizing, or is it? I'll leave it with that. Go ahead.
For me, looking at, if I get down to the deeper aspects of myself, I know that growth and contribution are are my highest human needs. Right. So knowing that, typically what somebody would say, it's like, I love to see that my clients get results, and that's, very fulfilling. And obviously it's fulfilling and you want to see that, and it's great. And it's very inspirational to see that, of course. But there's more to it than that, like you're saying. In terms of the growth and contribution side, well, beyond seeing the results of my clients, beyond seeing the breakthroughs and all that side of thing, which is what I would have been accustomed to over the years working as a personal trainer. In addition to that, now it's actually seeing the growth of my program as it evolves. That's great to see. It's also, as the number of people that I impact increases, that's huge, right? So really, evolving my program itself is massive, because as I evolve that and I could take on more people and have more impact, that's really what is a big driver for me, beyond all that other great stuff. Because obviously I love to see my clients getting results, of course, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. It's gonna be the most rewarding, for sure. Okay, what the question is that came in: what is one thing about you that people familiar with your work won't know? Go ahead.
Well, they wouldn't know. Let's see. They wouldn't know how much I probably enjoy playing the drums.
There you go. Is that a fact?
And yeah, and I haven't posted anything yet. I actually have a couple of videos. I finally took a couple of videos of me playing at some point just for fun. So I was thinking about throwing those in there once in a while for entertainment value, or who knows, maybe a backbeat for some video productions. Who knows?
Absolutely. I didn't know that. I'm dying to see that video when it comes out. Great question. Okay. If there is a difficult situation, injury, etc. Sorry. Yeah. So somebody comes to you and they say, listen, I work out and I got injured. Like myself, I was at the gym and I was doing that scrunch machine, and all of a sudden I heard a little pop. And I don't even know how it happened. It wasn't very heavy weight. Then obviously there's not much you can do. Person's got a hernia, they got to fix that thing. But then afterwards, how do you help them to build, to strengthen their core?
So if we're talking about, you want to talk about, say, core in specific, or overall injuries, and then go to core?
That'd be good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I have a perfect example of this. One of my clients recently fractured their talus, which is the junction right where your foot attaches, right to your tibia. So this is a prime example of that. So main thing we wanted to do was to figure out what her limitations were. So the recommendations that would be given from her doctor, etc. But beyond that, what we did is completely modified her program so she can still work out all her major muscle groups without impacting her ankle. So we can't work that calf, let's say, right? Maybe some very light isometrics, but other than that, we've made I customized a program with her so that she can continue working out. And we got on that right after that happened. So as soon as she was, home and able to do that, we worked through all of that and figured that out for her. So, that's something we did, and that's something we did online. I didn't even do that in person with her, right? Now, if it's somebody that I see in person, it depends on what it is. If it's not an acute injury where they need to see a physiotherapist, like not actual like bad tissue damage, a lot of times if somebody's in the Hamilton area, I can actually see them and I'll be able to help them out with whatever that is, right? If it's out of my scope, then I'll hand them off to go see a physiotherapist. But a lot of the time, the pain that people have in their bodies is from things not being integrated together, like one muscle being too tight, one muscle being too weak. So either inactive muscles, overly tight muscles, and just things not working together as they're meant to. So in most cases, I can help people with pain to a large degree. It's just not something that I advertise, but it was actually my specialty for a solid 10 years, working under or with, let's say, physiotherapists, working with athletic therapists, absorbing as much information as I could from going to osteopath sessions and everything, just absorbing all of that and using my own ways of figuring things out, as opposed to fitting within a system, which was great because then I was able to learn things that you wouldn't learn from that you wouldn't learn from a class, let's say. It was very on practical stuff. So it's interesting because I've learned some really, really cool things over the years, and I've seen the benefits for people in terms of their minimizing pain and helping them function optimally, or even just getting back to regular function. Sometimes in a short time, I've seen people come, I've worked with people that come in like 9 out of 10 pain. And then half an hour later, an hour later, they're walking out with like, you know, either a 1 out of 10 or no pain in some cases, and most of the time, if it's not an acute injury, decreasing the pain by like 60%, 70%. It's amazing. And I'm telling you this right now, and anybody who's listening, because a lot of the times the pain that we have in our bodies, if it's not an acute injury, it's something that can be fixed, or it's something that you can progressively return to a normal function when you know the right things, right? So I just don't want people to be out there where struggling the way I've seen people struggle and think that there's not anything that you can do. That's the whole thing, is that there is something that you can do the large majority of the time. And no matter what, even if you have an injury, there's something that you can do. You just need to find a person that can help you with that thing. So on the overall sense, that's what I'd say about injuries. In terms of core, what do you want to know about core?
It's so funny, Adam, that I tried planking, right? That's a big one. I've heard that that's supposed to be really amazing for you.
Mm-hmm.
There are other core exercises that you can do without weights that you can do at home. First, just tell people that are looking, that just don't really fully understand about core exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important, no matter what your age is, to strengthen your core?
All right. Well, your core. Well, first off, you ever notice that martial artists or athletes, they train their core. They also know how to breathe well.
Mm-hmm.
Babies know how to breathe well. If you ever watch a baby lying on its back, it's breathing in its abdomen, right? And when it's standing, same thing's happening. But you see a lot of adults, they're not breathing in their abdomen. A lot of adults are breathing in their chest, right? And part of that is core dysfunction. And the problem there from a health front is that when you're breathing apically up here, as opposed to abdominally, where you're meant to breathe 95% of the time or more, then your central nervous system is not going to be regulated. So, and what I mean by that, if you look at your autonomic nervous system, on one end, you have fight or flight up here, you're overstimulated, right? And then down here, you have your parasympathetic, your sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, rest, relax, digestion, healing, all happens down here. You want to be down here most of the time, right? But if you're breathing through here, you're not going to be in that health state. And how does this relate to core? Well, the thing is, if your core is not functioning properly, then chances are you're not going to be breathing into the right areas. What happens is, to make it as simple as possible, your core is meant to be stable. Like your lumbar spine, your lower back, that area is meant to be stable and not moving. And it's interesting the way your body works, because when you go above that, you have your thoracic spine next, from the top of your lower back to the bottom part of your neck here, you have your thoracic spine, and that's meant to be mobile. And then the adjacent joints to that, your scapula back here, they're meant to be stable again. And then to your shoulder, mobile, elbow, stable, wrist, mobile. And it's the same thing on the way down. It goes from core, stable, hips, mobile, knees, stable, ankles, mobile. Now, the thing is, that whole physical system right there is not going to work properly if we don't have core stability. So you need to work on your core so that everything else works properly in the body. And we talked about it from two fronts now, that physical front and how it affects our breathing physically, which then affects us mentally, because when we breathe where we're supposed to be breathing, where we're the way we start out breathing in life anyways, right? Then we're going to have that sense of calm in the conversation. It's the opposite place of anxiety and being stuck in our head. So, a lot of that comes from core alone and having your core function properly. And one thing I'll say that people wouldn't really know is that, there's one thing training your core, right? You work out the muscles in your core. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be functional though. And why I say that is because you can have tight muscles in your core. And when they're tight, it can actually turn off other muscles in your core or in your body, right? So usually people have tension in various areas through the core, and I don't see anybody out there talking about that fact and releasing those areas. But I know with my clients, I've done it for years, and I've seen, a person can go from feeling stressed to relax just by releasing a couple specific areas sometimes, or releasing around their diaphragm just below the rib cage. It's a lot of tension we can hold in there because our food, for instance, creates inflammation, and when we're not eating the right things, especially, and that turns off our core. So another thing to consider, you eat the wrong foods, turns off your core, causes physical dysfunction, causes mental disturbance as well, because your core, that inflammation in your core and your stomach and all through your gut, that also is going to cause neuroinflammation in your brain. So I know I took that a little bit deeper and beyond what you're asking about the core, but in terms of getting your core to function right, it's related to so many things. It's related to your breathing, your overall health, the balance of your autonomic nervous system, the function of your physical body. So it's imperative to work on that core so that everything else can do what it needs to do. It's a very, very important spot to put focus on when it comes to our health.
Man, my brain is going a little crazy here. I have to tell you,
I know, right?
Because I just thought, every person who's over 30, and probably those that are active and younger should book with you. Able to understand how what's going on in their body. But I do have a question for you. So you've talked about how you come from pain mitigation and other things that you're doing, and you're it sounds like you have been very much involved in health, and you're on a journey as you're building your business. So let's project forward a little bit. Let's go down the road, maybe 5 years or so. Looking for yourself, and what other areas of health and strengthening your body would you be looking at?
Now, Ivan, I think while you were saying that, I think something cut out for a second. I think the audio cut out for a moment, so I missed part of that. Are you saying that in application to myself, where I'm looking to be myself in 5 years? Or
you've come on a really amazing journey in this field. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are you going to be adding to your service offering? Like, what's happening? What are you doing?
Well, it's interesting. There's so many things evolving in the world right now, and 5 years is a long time in this point in history, right? There's so many possibilities there. I've always had a strong passion within holistic health, and although my specialty is weight loss, I've decided it to be weight loss at this point in time. I'm really looking at, when I'm working with people, I'm working on optimizing their health, right? So my focus is really on holistic health and creating systems behind holistic health. And as I continue writing more and more and more, I have an idea for a book that I plan to complete. I think that's important to get all your best stuff out there. So you can, why wouldn't you do that? When we're in the business we're in, we have to do a lot of writing anyways. Why not put it into a book, put it all in one place where people have access to it? So that book, the book title, along with, my business name is Vital Health Matrix. The book would be Vitality Matrix. There is the possibility that I end up writing a book about consistency as well, because that's one of the other things I work on with people a lot is consistency. And whether you're looking at morning routines, nighttime routines, fitting things into people's lives, scheduling things, whatever the case may be, working on habits, all of it really comes down to creating consistency, looking at what you can control and creating consistency around those areas, because that's how you're going to get results with everything. So even though my focus is weight loss, the methodologies that I use, I often over time, when I work with somebody for a longer period, we start applying it to other areas in their life as well, because the process is very much similar, regardless of what you're trying to achieve.
But you know what, Adam, you did mention, you're saying your focus is on weight loss, but there's processes that you want to get into place and mindset, right? But obesity, you talked about at the beginning, this is a big deal. Right? Now, there are people who say, what, I'm not strong enough to go through that journey. I just can't. And so therefore I'm just happy. I just have to be just happy with the way I am.
Mhm.
I know we certainly don't want to talk about body shaming or anything like that, but I'm just saying for those that that have a hankering for change,
Mhm.
talk to me about what words can we say to encourage them when it comes to obesity and why it's could be important to work on that.
Well, it really comes down to a person's reasons for doing anything. We got to look at, why you'd want to do something. So if somebody is overweight or obese and they want to change that, well, if somebody came to me, asked me that question, one of the first things I'd ask them, simple, is why? Why do you want to make that change?
Mm.
Why is that important to you? And you got to get deep on that, right? And really, in the initial conversation with somebody, I'll find out what that reason is. But when working with somebody, I'll go deeper into that with them, because the depth of that is a big part of what will create sustained motivation, which is, and people always talk about motivation these days. I think it's funny, like it's misconstrued in the media all the time, because people just don't understand that motivation is what's behind all our actions. And what I hear frequently these days is that motivation is temporary. Discipline is what matters. Like, well, that would be great, but the thing is, you can't build discipline. You can build mental strength, and eventually you'll have what somebody would define as discipline because you're doing things consistently. But really, what it starts out with, and this is speaking to what you're asking here, is that it comes down to motivation first. So, person wants to lose weight. Why do they want to do it? What's important to them? The thing that's important to you, Ivan, is going to be different than what's important to me, right?
Right.
There would be some commonalities there. If you're, let's say, just to keep it simple for anybody listening, if your career was the most important thing to you, then you would want to relate that goal to your career. What's the difference going to be in your career? What's it going to mean to you? Like, are you a person? Depends on the person, the level that the person works at, as if they're an employee or if they're an entrepreneur. If there's a person that's going to enter into business meetings, are there a person that is aspiring to be more of a leader? They want to look the part. You want to be able to command a room when you walk into it. What is it? If it's career and that's important to you and that's the direction you're going, then you can figure out reasons why taking the actions to get to that goal and the results that you'll get are going to impact your life as a entrepreneur or are going to impact your career. What's that going to do? It's going to give you motivation, right? And you need that initial motivation. Now, the other part you mentioned that I think is important to speak to is, if somebody's not feeling, how would you put it? Like, there's somebody who's starting out, they have doubt, they don't have that drive first. So you got to create that motivation. The other thing I'd say for somebody starting from the beginning and maybe is feeling disempowered, maybe they've struggled to get the results they've wanted in the past, so they doubt themselves, etc., is that once you find that motivation, the next thing you want to work on is building mental strength. And that's going to come from taking small steps. And that's where you want to start in this journey. Start with small, achievable goals. You have to make the right goals, right? Because the right goals are going to give you motivation too. The wrong goals, if you make the wrong goals, too big of goals that are unrealistic because you don't know any better, or just things that you can't achieve because you don't have the right information, whatever it may be, if you make the wrong goals, if you create the wrong goals, so not smart goals, unrealistic goals, then you know what, you're going to end up without getting results in, maybe a few weeks, 4 weeks, and you might suffer from what could be called expectation hangover. You'll end up being demotivated, right? You won't feel good, and then you'll drop off the bandwagon. So what I think is important for people to know is that the weight loss journey and the creation of health journey are both things that take time. It's a journey. It's not something that happens tomorrow. And no matter where you're starting from, you can take a step. You can take one step, and then you can take two, and then you can take three. So part of the process is, you have to know where you're going, of course, why you're going there, and you want to take small steps towards it. And that really comes down to not just setting, most people, when they think about setting goals, it's like, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds. I'm like, okay, how are you going to do that? Right. And then there's all the things below that are going to matter, like things like mindset, actions, exercise, there are the workouts that you're doing, right? But even something as simple as nutrition, when you break it down, it's like you might get down to, okay, we need to shift your macronutrients a little bit, and it might not happen all at once. Like I have a number of clients that consume way too little protein, right? So say they're supposed to be, say they're not supposed to be, say optimally for them would be, I don't know, say 110 grams or 120 grams of protein, something like that, but they're eating like 40, not even enough to sustain their immune system at the level that you'd want it to be optimally, right? Well, you're not going to jump from 40 to 120. So even that right there, you break down a nutrition goal into parts, you'll have to make weekly goals based on that, right? So for anybody who's starting out, might be feeling like that, feeling down and want to get moving, it starts by taking the first step, making commitment to yourself, and then slowly figuring out and realizing that it is a journey. Have that expectation that it's going to take some time, but you can get there one step at a time.
All right, I have another question that came in, which you might not want to answer. so here it is. It's what advice would you give someone pursuing a path similar to yours? Yes.
Now, similar to mine as a personal trainer, similar to as a coach, a health coach.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that. Sure.
Yeah.
Because really, you're more of a coach now. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
more of a coach now than a personal trainer. So let's answer to that.
Well, if somebody's taking the journey that I'm on right now, you really want to get your reasons in line. You have to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. It's not an easy journey. Where, as you know, as an entrepreneur, it's a challenge, right? It takes a lot. So you need to know going in that it's going to be hard work. But at the same time, if you're on your mission, if you know your why, you know the reasons why you're doing it, you're clear on that, then you're going to have the mental strength to push through the hard times. So as an entrepreneur in general, you have to know that it's going to be a challenge, and you got to be ready for that, right? You don't want to be weak going into entrepreneurship. That's for sure, because you'll get crushed.
Is there anything inherently brutal about starting and growing a startup in your industry as a health coach?
Yeah, there's been a massive shift to the online world. The online market's flooded, right? It's been flooded. So there's a lot of coaches going online right now, and there are a lot of great coaches. There's also a lot of really bad advice out there, but for coaches themselves, it doesn't take that much digging to realize that you have to be able to differentiate yourself, what you're doing from what others are doing, because there's so many people online right now doing, working as a personal trainer, health coach, online personal trainers, etc. You're up against a lot, and if you don't differentiate yourself, then you're a commodity, and that's the last thing you want. You don't want to be a commodity. You want people to know if somebody's going through your program, they know what the program name is. Let's say it's like, yeah, I've done that program. Eventually, you think about it in the long run, somebody's like, oh yeah, I've been through that program. I love that program. You want people to say that. So they'll need to reference that. So, you're going to think about it. Health coach alone, if you're telling somebody you're a health coach alone, that doesn't tell them very much.
Mm-hmm.
Start thinking about who you specialize with, right? You have to figure out who you want to work with, why you want to work with them. So you got to niche down too. So that's the other thing. And in this market that I'm in specifically, and probably in a lot of markets, the first thing you got to do is you have to find your niche, figure out who you want to work with, why you want to work with them, the age group, and get really specific on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got two questions then for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because more specifically about you now. Two questions. That is, what motivates you to get up in the morning and get to work?
Mm.
I can't see you. I can't see you moping around and dragging. Yes. And the second question is, and what is it that most people misunderstand about your business and what you do?
Mm. So me getting up in the morning, it's really about my mission. I know there's people out there that are hurting. I know there's people out there that if I'm not getting in front of them, that they're going to be in front of somebody else that may not have, such a comprehensive solution that is going to get them the long-term feel-good results that they want. So when I get up in the morning, it's like, how am I going to get in front of these people? How am I going to help? How am I going to help them? Right. So I guess my drive comes from serving others, doesn't it? And that's the interesting thing is even for sometimes I find mothers have an issue with this sometimes, is that they give, but they don't give anything to themselves, right? Right. But the reframe is that you give to yourself and you can be a better role model for your kids, and you have more energy and you can deal with more stress. And then, by giving to yourself, then you can give to others better. So you have to kind of reframe in terms of mindset there. For me, I have to do the same kind of things as well. It's like, there's always a balance between self and other, but you have to think about what do you need to do for yourself so that you can be there for others. So, I don't want to get up in the morning and procrastinate and, hit the alarm a bunch of times. It's like, no, I want to get up in the morning, have the lights on, so that, get out of bed, either work out or take a cold shower or something like that to get things moving, get some movement in there, maybe some meditation in there, depending on the day and how you're doing things. But, I get out of bed and my purpose is to get myself fired up and productive so that I can make a greater impact in this world, because you're either driving forward day by day or you're falling back. Right? There's no, mediocrity. The one thing I'll say is like mediocrity is the enemy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what is it that people misunderstand
about the industry or about myself?
Yeah, about what a health coach does. I always have this picture with someone with a stopwatch next to them, and I'm somehow sitting on a ball precariously with weights, and they're going, "Come on, 15 more. Come on, man,
5 more."
That's right.
5. You know what? I think that's accurate though. Like if I was to, from an outside perspective, I imagine, I don't know for sure, I can't speak for everybody, but I imagine that people would think that, a personal trainer would be doing exactly what you just said. And you know what? The truth is a personal trainer would be doing more of that, because as a personal trainer, you're telling people what to do. Right? So as a health coach online, if somebody worked with a personal trainer before, they would probably think that's the same thing, but coaching is the total opposite. So I think the misunderstanding would be is that you're focusing on nutrition and nutrition and exercise alone, right? But that's not the case. So going back to personal trainer, as a personal trainer, you're working with somebody for maybe 2 to 3 hours out of their week, and you bring them through workout at that time. And if you're doing it on the level I would take people aside and coach them a little bit take some of that session time to do that, because that worked more powerfully. I realized that a long time ago, right? That's not what the average personal trainer is doing now. As a coach, it's completely different. Now you're managing the other 165, 166 hours of somebody's week. And in doing that, it's a whole different ballgame. Then as a coach, you're asking more questions. You're helping people cultivate self-awareness. You're helping people develop their mindset. You're helping them with whatever they need help with to improve their health and their success. It could be time management, like you're working on sleep, you're working on any aspect of health you could think of. And really, one of the last thing I'll say about this, because I see that you have something else you want to ask, is that really you have to look at what are the biggest rocks to move, right? What's going to make the difference for that person? And honestly, it can be completely different depending on who you're working with. And the example I'll give is I was working with somebody one time, and the first thing I got them to do was to make a schedule. I went through a bunch of mindset stuff with them, but in the end, had them make a schedule to clean their house because it was such a big stress for them. Yeah, it was such a big stress for them that they couldn't gain any traction anywhere else because it was distracting them all the time. It was making them feel like crap. So yeah, so I got them to do some basic things in terms, like really basic things in terms of nutrition. I don't even think we added exercise in the beginning. The first thing was focusing on that. And then by doing that, by making that goal for that thing and then doing it, they felt better each time. So we started building up their belief in themselves by that thing. So it doesn't matter what the thing is that you're doing. If you're setting a goal and hitting it, whatever it is, you're going to be building your self-belief up. And that's where it started, built their self-belief up, and then moved into more workouts, and then moved into more stuff related to nutrition. So you never know what it's going to be. Usually you start with the basics, but every once in a while there's an outlier situation where, to get the person out of the place they were in, it was to actually do that. That was one of the first most important things.
Well, a coach sounds like a health coach sounds like somebody that you really need. It's almost like the person who's the front of that ice crusher, that goes through and allows the boat to go through. They help you to these things are possible to move out of the way. Let's get them out of the way so that you can actually move forward. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, a question that I
like that analogy.
Oh, okay, you can use it. So what time of the day is best for a workout? And you're going to say, oh, it depends on the person. But in your experience, what time is it better? Do you find that people are able to commit more when it's in the evening, in the morning, or in the afternoon?
It depends on the person. It really does. But what I noticed, can you still hear me?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, it seemed like it cut out there for a second. So what I noticed over my years as a personal trainer during that time, I had a lot of clients that were very much consistent, and I advised all the other trainers to do the same thing that I did, and it was to get them in at the same time so they could be consistent. Like, what time is it? What time works best for them? If it works for them if it's always that time, that's great, because people will be most consistent at that time. It's important to figure out what time will work for you, because I find that what people don't do in life in general is think enough about how to implement things. And I was working with somebody and they're trying to figure out what time worked for them. They never really thought it through. And I sat down with them and they thought through everything and all the pitfalls of the different times, etc., and if they could be consistent or not. And in the end, what happened? It's like, well, there's actually only one option. There's only one option for them. That's what they figured out. And that's really great to know, because then it's like, okay, there's only one time that I can work out. So great. Now you're going to be working out. Amazing. Now you have to figure out, what you need to do to make that happen. There's no other option. So, great.
All right. So here's a question for you then. What advice would you give to your 16-year-old self? And I know you have long hair and you probably play guitar, right? So what advice would you give yourself?
My 16-year-old self. Well, in some ways, I think that is a silly question in a way. It's a question that's often asked. If I went back 5 years ago and somebody asked that question, I'd probably have some kind of answer, and I feel like it might have been ignorant to some degree. And why I'm saying this is that, I think it takes away from answering a question like that, takes away from how important the human experience is. Because, going back to when I was 16 years old, my capacity mentally at that point in time would have been that of a 16-year-old. Right? What can you say to a 16-year-old that's going to have an impact on them that's going to pervade the rest of their life?
Yeah.
The experience is so important. That's a thing with, and how that actually relates to, say, the health and weight loss journey, is that it's the experience that really is that journey. Like, you say you set a goal, you have intentions you have in place, and you go through a week, and then at the end of that week you look back on that and you see what went well, you see what didn't go well, you work through that process, And if you build it up that way, week by week, with that experience, like, having intentions, taking action, and having that feedback, you're going to grow and develop, and you're going to have layers of deeply seated reasons for everything that you're doing, which is how it ends up becoming a habit, as opposed to, okay, here's the diet plan. Do this, you'll get results. Like, one tier approach, right? Not even considering that the chances of long-term results are basically nil if you're not working out. Let's say here's a diet plan. This is all you need. Somebody will tell you that, right? Here's the perfect diet plan. Like, imagine there was a perfect diet plan. There's no such thing. But that right there, you don't learn anything. But if you're educated in the process and you learn how to make decisions for yourself for the right reasons, the reasons that are important to you, those are the things that are going to have staying power over the long term. And it all comes from human experience.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so people right now are probably thinking, how do I reach this guy? So why don't you tell us how our listeners can connect with you online?
Well, the easiest way to connect with me is just by DMing me. I love to start talking to people through the DM, direct message, either text message. So my Instagram is Adam G. Arbour, Arbour. That's my handle there. And on Facebook, it's Adam Arbour, Arbour. People can also contact me directly, though. Text me at 905-928-4859. Have a conversation there. I'm free to talk when I am free. And I also have I do have a direct booking link too. That's something I could provide to you, Ivan, if you would like.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do is I'll include it so people can just click it and go and book, right?
Yeah. So I actually have two links. One is somebody who knows that they're ready to take action. It's like, they've tried things before and it hasn't worked, and they're just ready they're ready. They know the time is now. And for that, I have a link for a breakthrough call. And then the other link that I have is for a clarity call. So I have a certain amount of time that I put aside each week to just serve random public and schedule these clarity calls, which are like shorter call, 15 minutes, so that people can ask simple questions. Maybe they don't need to get involved in a program or on a large scale, right? So what I'll do is allow for a couple clarity calls here and there throughout the week, so that people can have the simple questions answered that they want to talk to an expert about. And I think it's important to have that resource at hand.
Absolutely. That's great. Well, thank you very much. I will post that on a tile, which will probably be up here. So there you go. And thank you so much, Adam. That's great. I really appreciate you taking the time for this call. I've learned something. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sitting down with me here today. It was awesome to talk with you, as always, Ivan.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I hope I answered your questions adequately.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had like 15 more. You're such a pleasure to chat with. And I encourage anybody who is interested in just even asking more questions. He's actually like this when you actually talk to him directly. So definitely reach out. All right.
Yeah, this is the real me. This is not an avatar.
That's right. Yeah.